Ladies and gentlemen, I am sad to inform you that I am this generation's teenager. And I must confess, when I'm sitting on the tram, I like to listen to my music on, of course, my smartphone. And when I'm sitting there, I see elders looking at me disapprovingly, and I can just hear them think, oh, technology. Things used to be much better in our time. As an extension of our arm, we had a real working tool and not some stress-producing little machine. And we were much more social. Look at those earphones. They're a wall for anyone who wants to have social interaction. Now, in my head, I would like to answer the following. Dear sir, you are sitting on a tram, one of technology's finest. And do I see the glimpse of a hearing aid? Well, I might be antisocial for listening to my music, but without your hearing aid, it would be much tougher for you to be as social as you are now. I think this little mind conversation has made it clear that none of us can live without the use of technology anymore. What's more is that it has changed the way we work, the way we think, and the way we live. Technology has given us much more efficiency and has now also given us the possibility to be available at all times. This, however, can add a lot of stress to our daily lives. What's worse, it can lead to an obsession with technology. When I go out for dinner with my friend, she likes to take out her phone to refresh her Instagram from time to time, which makes her physically still having dinner with me, but in her mind she's more occupied with other people's dinner. So we see the ease of having everything just one touch away, because let's face it, clicks are so outdated. But this can also result into something that, in my opinion, is the worst thing technology can do. We forget to care. We forget to care about our feelings and pay attention to what makes us human. But how did we let technology change our lives so drastically, and why did we not take any precautions? The answer is simple. We could not have known the consequences. During the past few decades, a gigantic wave of technology has crashed onto us. The invention of internet and computer was so innovative and brought a whole new dimension to life. After this, finding, processing, and sharing information became so easy, a whole new world opened up to us. Withholding this creation would mean withholding human growth. And there was also no way to test the psychological impact it could have over a few generations. Only now are we confronted with the results. However, I believe it isn't too late for mankind to step out of this downward spiral. What we need now is two things. The first is a balance in society. With having more and more technology every day, we also need more people to think about whether or not it is morally responsible to bring out certain technologies. We cannot gamble with our future by bringing out new technologies recklessly. But we also shouldn't just wipe away any idea that could have negative side effects. Our society ought to have ethical committees with, for example, philosophers, engineers, and psychologists to think about the impact certain technologies could have and to give advice to companies and governments. Secondly, we have to keep the balance in ourselves, both physically and in our minds. We have to remember to think about our feelings and what makes us human. And we should spare time for those things. Once a year, I see my grandparents who live in China. Sure, I Skype them every week, which according to many people counts as seeing as well. So why on earth would I sit on a plane for 12 hours just to have the same conversations with them I could easily have over the phone? I do this because nothing can take away the feeling of hugging them after such a long time. And just having them before me and talking them to face and physically. Nothing should be able to take away this need that we have, because it's what makes us human. Our need for physical contact and our need to express our emotions to the fullest. So if we can keep the balance between the use of technology and on the other hand still make time in our head and lives for real social contact, we don't have to be afraid of the dangers Sidney J. Harris once wrote about. The real danger is not that computers will begin to think like men, but that men will begin to think like computers. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech, Elisabeth. Would you say that technology in general is a tool or a barrier to communication?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the last part?
Would you say that technology in general is a tool or a barrier to communication?
It is both. I think it can both, and it depends on the way that we use it. Because obviously I am very grateful that Skype exists so I can talk to my grandparents, but it is the moment that we forget that it cannot replace real physical contact, that it becomes a barrier for proper communication. Thank you.
Yes. In jobs these days, people often get smartphones. Do you think this is a good development or a bad one?
I think it should be a good development because obviously smartphones were made to make our lives easier, but I think they are used a bit wrongly because everything just happened so fast. So all of a sudden we had this moment where we're like, okay, we can just call you anytime I need, I can tell you to send a mail anytime I want, and I think that is the part that is quite dangerous. It's handy to have your phone so you can contact them in a real emergency, or that you can choose maybe your hours that you want to work, that are most convenient for you, but in the case where you have to be available at all times and always have to be right on the spot when they ask you, I think that is a bad development that we have made.
Hi, Elisabeth. Is there any technical or technological development you wish had never happened?
No, I think not. I think everything happens for a good reason. There was this article which said that engineers were more ethical than doctors and philosophers, and I think that's a very nice expression. So it means that engineers, they develop things to make life better, and it's what they do. But it's the way that we use the developments that have been made that turn out bad. So I think every invention is good in itself, and we just need to learn to use it correctly and have guidelines for them. And I think that's the most important part.
Hello. You spoke about precautions that we could or should have taken before this whole technological revolution started. Could you perhaps give an example of that? What do you have in mind?
Thank you for that question. I think education is a very important part, which obviously we didn't know because no one knew what the internet was like. But I think when my generation gets children, I think it's very important that we teach them how to use the internet correctly because it's a completely different world. And just like you want to know where your kid is after school and how much time he spends with which friend, I think you have the right to also know how many friends he has on Facebook, for example, and how much time he spends on it and what he's doing. Because it is a completely different world and we should be able to restrict from that. So I think, teaching them is the start. Thank you.
Is there, in your opinion, any unacceptable development in technology? So what is the ethical boundary of technical development or technological development?
Thank you for that question. I think the ethical part is where we stop being human. And it's obviously a very hard question to answer, and that's why I think ethical committees should be made. Because anything that stops us from being human is really a bad invention. And I think in the medical world, it's the best example. For example, choosing the sex of your child, that's a technological development that lots of people, they're not sure if it's right or wrong. And I believe, changing your unborn child's eyes or anything, I think that we shouldn't touch that area. And once we do, it's going to be hard to pull it back. So I think it's important that we just stay away from when we can.
Thank you.